You can bind up my leg, Epictetus would say. Indeed, his leg really had been bound and broken, but not even Zeus has the power to break my freedom of choice. We'd like to think that the modern world is so different from the ancient, but is it? Marcus Aurelius' reign from 161 to 180 AD was defined by a pandemic which originated in the distant East and quickly overwhelmed Rome's institutions. Civil unrest, interminable wars in the provinces, personal health issues, cultural decadence, income inequality, and so much else. This was his daily existence. As he would observe in meditations, people have always been people, and life has always been life. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Yet Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics still found a way to be successful, happy, strong, productive, and good, despite all these difficulties. In this, we must learn from them. The history of Stoic philosophy is filled with all sorts of unique characters from unique backgrounds, from slaves to generals, lawyers to writers, daughters to doctors, and they thrived amidst both adversity and prosperity. After more than a decade now of writing and thinking about the Stoics, most recently with my book Lives of the Stoics, here are 7 lessons we can take from the ancient world and apply in our modern times. It begins with finding a mentor. Choose a master whose life, conversation, and soul-expressing face have satisfied you, for we must indeed have someone according to whom we may regulate our characters. You can never straighten that which is crooked unless you use a ruler. Seneca. Fittingly, the story of Stoicism begins with misfortune. On a merchant voyage, Zeno was shipwrecked. He lost almost everything. He washed up in Athens, where he walked into a bookstore and listened to the bookseller reading dialogues from Socrates. After the reading, Zeno asked the question that would change his life. Where can I find a man like that? That is, where can I find my own Socrates? Where can I find someone to study under? In that moment, Crates, a well-known Athenian philosopher, happened to be passing by. The bookseller simply extended his hand and pointed. You could say it was fated. The Stoics of later years certainly would have. And according to the ancient biographer Diogenes Laertius, Zeno joked, "Now that I have suffered shipwreck, I'm on a good journey." Or according to another account, he said, "You've done well, fortune, driving me thus to philosophy." Nearly all the ancient Stoics had a formative mentor, living or dead. Cleanthes had Zeno, Cato had Sarpedon, Seneca had Attalus, Epictetus had Musonius Rufus, Marcus Aurelius had Rusticus, who turned him on to Epictetus, Chrysippus had Cleanthes, Thrasea had Cato, Antipater had Diogenes, Panaetius had Crates, Posidonius had Panaetius. The Stoics knew that life was hard and required help. Only beasts can do it alone, Marcus said. We need guidance from those who are further ahead on the path. We cannot do without mentors. We control what happens. We control how we respond. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so I can say clearly to myself which externals are under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to the uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own. That's Epictetus. Epictetus' most powerful insight as a teacher derives directly from his experience as a slave. Although all humans are introduced at some point to the laws of the universe, almost from the moment he was born, Epictetus was reminded daily how little control he had even of his own person. He adopted this lesson into what he described as our chief task in life, to distinguish between what is up to us and what is not up to us. Once we have organized our understanding of the world into these black and white categories, what remains, what was so central to Epictetus' survival as a slave, is to focus on what is up to us, our attitudes, our emotions, our wants, our desires, our opinions about what has happened to us. These choices are our choice. You can bind up my leg, Epictetus would say. Indeed, his leg really had been bound and broken, but not even Zeus has the power to break my freedom of choice. And that is your most efficacious gift, Epictetus said, the power to control how you respond, to control your reactions. And that is the key ingredient to freedom, whatever one's condition. We must be different. It never ceases to amaze me, Marcus Aurelius said. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own. If you want to improve, Epictetus said, if you want to achieve wisdom, you have to be okay looking strange or even clueless from time to time. Epictetus tells us the story of the Stoic Agrippinus, who said that we are all threads in a garment. Most people were indistinguishable from each other, one thread among countless others. Most people were happy conforming, being anonymous, handling their own tiny unsung role in the fabric. In a Roman Empire that had given itself over fully to avarice and corruption, the strategy chosen by most Romans was to keep a low profile, to blend in so one did not catch the attention of capricious or cruel rulers who held the power of life and death. But to Agrippinus, this kind of compromise was inconceivable. Despite what everyone else was doing, he refused to keep that low profile during Nero's reign, refused to conform or tamp down his independent thinking. Why do this? Agrippinus was asked. Why not be like the rest of us? I want to be read, he said, that small and brilliant portion which causes the rest to appear beautiful. Be like the majority of people? If I do that, how shall I any longer be read? Years later, the band Alice in Chains would sing the song Nutshell, which captured what Agrippinus carried in his heart. If I can't be my own, I'd feel better dead. Beautifully said. And a reminder to all of us today, embrace who you really are, embrace what makes you unique. Be red, be the small part that makes the rest bright. We desperately need you to do that. Value virtue. Be wise and self-controlled and share courage and justice, the art by which a human would become good. We must do that. Musonius Rufus. Courage, justice, temperance, wisdom, they are the most essential values in Stoicism. If at some point in your life, Marcus Aurelius wrote, you should come across anything better than justice, truth, self-control, and courage, it must be an extraordinary thing indeed. That was almost 20 centuries ago. We have discovered a lot of things since then: automobiles, the internet, cures for diseases that were previously a death sentence. But if we found anything better than those virtues, than being brave, than doing what's right, than moderation and sobriety, than truth and understanding? No, we have not. So memorize those 4 virtues. Keep them close to your heart and hands always. Act on them, live them. Tell everyone you meet about them. If you can't do good, at least do no harm. To do harm is to do harm to yourself. To do an injustice is to do yourself an injustice. It degrades you. Marcus Aurelius. Shakespeare, the great observer of the Stoics, said that the good we do in life is easily forgotten, but the evil we do lives on and on. No Stoic philosopher illustrates this principle more than Diotimus. Sometime around the turn of the 1st century BC, he committed what can only be described as an unjustifiable crime. He forged dozens and dozens of letters that framed the rival philosopher Epicurus as a sinful glutton and depraved maniac. It was an act of despicable philosophical slander, and Diotimus was quickly brought up on charges. For a school that prized logic and truth as much as virtuous behavior, his actions are inexcusable. Seneca, who writes about all sorts of philosophers, never mentions this incident, but he should have, and he should have condemned it. But it was, in the end, Diotimus' sole contribution to Stoicism, a cautionary tale. Musonius Rufus best captured the prevailing lesson of this man's life when he said, if you accomplish something good with hard work, the labor passes quickly, but the good endures. If you do something shameful in pursuit of pleasure, the pleasure passes quickly, but the shame endures. Compromise is key. No one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the 2 rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. Marcus Aurelius. Cato, one of the most vaunted and towering Stoics, built a reputation and a career out of his refusal to give an inch in the face of pressure. He refused political compromise in every form, to the point that people turned his name into an aphorism. What do you expect of us? We can't all be Catos. But Cato's inflexibility did not always best serve the public good. When Pompey, one of Rome's great generals and political forces, returned to Rome from his foreign conquests, he felt out potential alliances with Cato. The two had tangled in the past, and so when Pompey proposed a marriage alliance either with Cato's niece or daughter, Cato dismissed it and dismissed it rudely. Go and tell Pompey, he instructed the go-between, that Cato is not to be captured by the way of women's apartments. This was a missed opportunity. As Plutarch would later note, if Cato had been willing to compromise, he could have saved Rome. Instead, by refusing this overture, he drove Pompey into the hands of his enemy. Pompey would marry Julius Caesar's daughter. The two men would soon overturn centuries of constitutional precedent. For Cato to compromise, to play politics with the bedrock laws of his nation at stake, would have been moral capitulation. But this all-or-nothing strategy ended in crushing defeat. Few did more to rage against the Republic's fall than Cato, and yet, in this one instance, few did more than Cato to bring it to pass. Memento Mori. Were all the geniuses of history to focus on this single theme, they could never fully express their bafflement at the darkness of the human mind. No person hands out their money to passerbys, but how do many of us hand out our lives? We're tight-fisted with property and money, yet think too little of wasting time, the one thing which we should be the toughest of misers. Seneca. Born with a chronic illness that loomed large throughout his life, Seneca was constantly thinking about and writing about that final act of life, death. Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life, he said. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time. Most interestingly, he quibbled with the idea that death was something that lay ahead of us in the uncertain future. That is our big mistake, Seneca wrote, to think that we look forward toward death. Most of death is already gone. Whatever time has passed is owned by death. That was Seneca's great insight, that we are dying every day, and no day once dead can be revived. So we should listen to the command that Marcus Aurelius gave himself. Concentrate every minute like a Roman, he wrote, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, and with justice, and on freeing yourself from all other distractions. The key to this kind of concentration, do everything as if it were the last thing you were doing in your life. That's the power of memento mori, of meditating on your mortality. It isn't about being morbid or making you scared. It's about giving you power. It's to inspire, to motivate, to clarify, to concentrate like a Roman on the only thing that matters, what's in front of you, because it may well be the last thing you see in your life. The Stoics were philosophers, but more than that, they were doers. And they didn't have room for big words or big ideas, just stuff that made you better right here, right now. As Marcus Aurelius said, justice, honesty, self-control, and courage. Don't make room for anything but this, for anything that might lead you astray, tempt you off the road, and leave you unable to devote yourself completely to achieving the goodness that is uniquely yours. And look, this is what the lives of the Stoics can teach you. They can teach us. They can teach us how to be what we are meant to be, how to become the people that we can become. That's why I wrote this book. As I say in the intro, there is really no point to philosophy unless it makes you better as a human being, as a citizen, as a father, as a mother, as a friend. And so that's what we write about in the book. It's sort of a sequel to the Daily Stoic. I'm really proud of it. It's going to take your study of Stoicism to the next level. You can check it out. We've got a whole bunch of pre-order bonuses for you. Go to dailystoic.com/lives. There's even signed copies available for sale. It's a limited run, so you got to get those while they're still available. And of course, you can also just check the book out anywhere books are sold: Amazon, IndieBound, Barnes & Noble, Audible, whatever. Check it out. Lives of the Stoics, The Art of Living, from Zeno to Marcus Aurelius. For the Stoics, wisdom was an ongoing process. It was a journey. Zeno said that well-being is realized by small steps, but it's no small thing. So how do we do that? Well, I suggest the Daily Stoic email. You can sign up at dailystoic.com/email. One email every single day, totally free. The best wisdom and insights from the Stoics, from Zeno to Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. Sign up, start your journey. Let me know what you think.